All right, I think we can get going now. Good morning, everyone. Welcome once again to my little brown house. You're looking at a lovely view out our front window this morning as we enjoy an unseasonably warm day, but with a lovely gusty wind bringing the leaves showering down. I just love it. All right, now let me see if I can flip this around down to my work area without having too much trouble. There we go. Oh my word, okay, there we go. Spoke too soon, I guess. Turn my light on. Whoops, there we go. Oh, sure, now I move the... Can you hear the wind? It's howling. I was hoping it would do that when I had it pointed toward the window, but of course it didn't. Okay, as you can see, I left my gal as she was. I haven't done any more, which of course I said I wasn't going to. Let me see if I can get this down a little bit closer. We've gotten her skirt done, part of her shawl. Now we can move on. I'm not sure if I want to do her arms next or if I want to do her neck and head. I think we'll do her neck and head. Going to just move my sweet little turkey and everything else that I don't need at the moment, excuse me, out of the way. We may have to do this side of her shawl next. I don't know if you can tell, but I was able to get a little bit of a bump in there, as I mentioned during the previous video. I let a little bit of air get in there so that it could create somewhat of a bump. To me, it gives it a little bit of a shoulder look, gives it a little bit more movement. I really like that. Oh, hello, Patty. Good morning to you, and good morning to everybody else. I can see there's a bunch of people watching, but I actually can't see who they are. I see Patty and I see Phyllis. I don't see the other names. Okay, so I think... I think I'll do this side of the shawl next, and then we'll move on to her neck. Ooh. I wanted to mention, I believe the next project, and please, in your comments, tell me if anybody objects to this. By the way, before I mention my next thing, look at this lovely pair. I knew I've had them for quite some time, and I had set them aside, and this morning I went in search of them because I thought they would be just delightful for this project. It's a cute little pumpkin magnet. I bought this from Cheswick Company on Etsy years ago, as you can see, because it's a little scruffed up because I've used it. I think I bought these scissors there as well. She has a cute little shop. She has some really unique things that you can't find anywhere else. But I really like them. I don't actually use these scissors. You can. They work perfectly well. I tend to just have them about because I love how they look. Okay, so back to what I was saying. I may not do the next video, which will take place in November, and it will be a holiday themed project. Old Father Christmas is actually who it is. He is from my latest book of templates called Life in Our Little Brown House. That will be our next stitching project, but I believe I'm going to film those on my own and then put them straight on YouTube. So I don't think I'm going to do it through live. I found an editing system a video editor that I think I can use quite simply, and it would be easier for me, and I feel the videos would be nicer if I filmed them on my own and then put them all together into a video, maybe even one video, and then uploaded it on YouTube for everybody to watch. I don't want these to become tedious or people give up on watching them because they don't really necessarily want to see me stitch every single little detail during each video. So I thought I'm mulling that over, but I think that's my plan. I think that's what I'll do, is give that a whirl. It would also help me operate in a quicker manner because as I do it now, I film the lives, then I download them to my computer, and then I have to go to my sister-in-laws, my brother and sister-in-laws in Paulet, which is about 20 minutes from here, to upload them to YouTube, edit them, then let them process, and it's consuming a large chunk of my day, and I would like to do what I can to make this process quicker so that I still have time for the rest of my business. Orders to get out, etc., etc. Emails to answer and all that goes along with running a business. So I hope none of you are going to mind that I am going to move the lives or possibly discontinue the lives and just simply put the videos on Facebook. But it's something that I feel would work better for me. Now, I thought that I had more thread left from that one bit that I separated, but I guess not. So I'm going to have to cut myself another length of thread so we can get moving. Let's see, about this much. Let me wrap this up. I don't feel like the audience for the lives is that large where it's going to be a big deal if I take the videos and do them on my own, eliminating the live part and just have them be videos. I also feel like I can make them a little bit more professional as far as I can add some photos and do some editing and make them a little bit more delightful. Perhaps add some music, different elements. I hope it works out as I hope. I don't think I cut that long enough. I think that's going to be a pain, but let's see. Oh, I have my wax here today. This little thread container I purchased on Etsy, I believe from Craft. Oh my gosh, I cannot remember where I purchased this. I will look it up and let you all know. Oh gosh, okay, well I don't think I'm gonna be using it today because I can't get it open. I have no strength anymore. I don't know what my problem is. All right, there's some wax in there that I was able to pull off the edge, so I'm going to use that. But this is thread conditioner. It's fresh pine. Oh my heavens, it smells fantastic. Just like a Christmas tree. And I simply just, usually I'll push the thread down into the container and hold it down and run it through like this. But today I'm having to do a little bit different because I couldn't get the container open. So I just got the wax in my hand. I feel like it got a little too cold and it must have hardened everything up and made it so I couldn't open the container. So I'll have to heat this up just a smidge. I usually just will heat it up a little bit. Boy, this is bugging me that I can't get it open. Usually what I do to heat it up is I'll just set it. I have a tiny little lamp, and this little container fits perfectly on the top of the shade, so I just set it there, and it'll heat it up, and then I'll be able to get it open. Well, hopefully. But usually to soften it up enough to run my thread through, that is what I do, so I think it'll probably work. But threading your floss is nice because it just keeps it from tangling and twisting as much. Helps everything lay down. Okay, so I've got my needle threaded. Just gonna start. And simply when you have, oops, I pulled a little bit too much. Pulled my knot through. Let's give that a try again. The only issue I tend to have with the wax is sometimes it can get on your piece and leave a little bit of residue. I don't care for that. Let me see about getting a little closer. There we go. Now I like my stitches to be next to each other. So I'm going to take a wide stitch right here. I actually think I'm going to take one down in right here. Make sure they're even. And there, that's my first stitch. I'll take this next one right here. And so on. Just when you're butting stitches up next to each other, I make sure that they don't overlap. So what I'm saying is, hopefully you can see that. I make sure that when I pull my needle up, bring my needle up, that I don't see how it's right there, it's down into the next bit of wool. You don't want that. So just make sure that it's right next to that already stitched area, but not in it. I think I can take that out now. All right, here we have a corner stitch. So I went in. This is going to be different for everybody, so I feel like I really don't need to explain the details of this, but I ended up going in the stitch that I had gone down into previously, and then I went a little bit further out, like I tend to do my corners. I go a little bit farther away. But when you're butting up against another piece, that's not always an option. And each person is going to stitch at different lengths, so you might not always go down into a previous stitch. But the key to corners really is to give yourself a little bit bigger stitch. At least that's how I find stitching corners to be. Give yourself a little bit longer stitch, and then be sure when you pull your, before you secure it down, pull straight, as you're securing it down, pull straight up. Stitching this piece has me thinking of Thanksgiving so very much. I've been wanting to roast a turkey and have blustery weather and see our first snowflakes. And here we are dealing with temperatures in the 70s, humidity, and possible thunderstorms this afternoon. Mother Nature has lost her mind. See, now here again, I'm going down into this same stitch for me. It just seems to be how I end up stitching my corners. They always seem to come together like this. They end up looking nice, so I do not mind it. There we go. Oh, also, I got to thinking about kits. People were asking me for kits, etc. And I thought it wasn't going to be possible time-wise for me to do that. But I'm thinking that if I switch from doing the lives to filming on my own here and there throughout the day as I can, and doing each project, filming each project myself rather than through the lives, I think that will give me more time to, like I said, handle the other aspects of my business, but also perhaps I would eventually have time for putting kits together for the projects. Ooh, now this corner is a little bit fray. Seems to be like it's going to fray a little bit on me, so this one might be a challenge. I'm going to go back down in, facing this way still for the moment. I'm hoping I keep it on camera for you guys. Pull back a smidge, go forward. Again, I'm going into that same hole that I went into with the previous stitch. Pull back a little, straight up, and lay it down. Again, into that same stitch. Pull back, straight up, and then down. I really feel like the pulling back, pulling straight up, and then pulling toward the direction your needle came out of makes a difference with corners. Okay, and excuse me. Now this poses a smidge of a challenge because this was pretty pointed corner. So you could go over here and then you'd have it pull. Let me see. I feel like if I came all the way over here and did it, it's not going to look right. It won't lay right. It's going to pull that too far. I am going to, once again, go in this same area. It's going to be a short stitch because there's barely any wool right there. But it will be the neatest option and the most secure for this pointy corner. I feel like it ends up making the corners look a bit decorative. And then we'll just go down to this next one. And as you can see, I'm going in right here where this other stitch was, but going the other direction. Let me see if I can get it a little bit better angle. I seem to be a little bit wonky on my area today. All right, let's see. Continue to move on. I have the camera and my light stand down close to the stitches so much that it's kind of getting in my way of seeing the stitching. All right, I'm going to pull it back up a little bit and try to get a little bit more of the project in the camera. I feel myself when I'm underneath, I feel myself stitching into my finger each time, sort of like that. I'll end up with all sorts of little pinpricks in my finger. I don't know if you guys can hear that tap, 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 but there's a woodpecker, and I'm quite sure he's tapping on the frame of the back door. Oh, goodness. That doesn't bode well for the state of the wood, I would imagine. Usually they... Oh, my goodness, I hope you can hear him. He's quite loud. Usually when they go after something like that, it's because the wood is beginning to age quite a bit. I don't want to say rot, but this house of ours is getting up there in years, and it's getting close to time where we are going to need to do some major repairs, such as windows and whatnot. Now see, quite inadvertently, I've got a little bit of air in there, a little bit of a bump. And if I keep it, it'll give it some nice movement. Oh, goodness, the wind is getting quite gusty. Oh my gosh, I hope you can hear that. It's just wonderful. It's howling. Now see, if it was a cold day, that would appear quite spooky. But because it's warm, I don't know, just doesn't seem as spooky to me. There we go. And to bring that down a little bit. This kind of day does make me want to watch the movie Hocus Pocus. And by the way, if you've not ever seen that movie, you definitely should. I can't exactly remember when it came out, but I want to say in the 90s. It has long been one of my favorites. Oh, goodness. The threads are getting short, or my length of thread is getting short, so it's going to start giving me a hard time. I didn't do my best work on that corner right there. I really should have taken another stitch. It looks okay, but perfectionist that I think I am with this, I tend to be, I guess, a little bit anal with this kind of stuff, but I should have done a little bit better job on that and taken one more closer stitch right there. But it ended up looking okay, so I guess we're all right. And really, technically, looks-wise, I shouldn't put another stitch in there because, well, not that I shouldn't. I don't, to match up, I don't really need to, but that seems a little bit too loose for me, and there seems to be too much distance between those two, so I'm just going to take another one right there, and then put my needle down. And there we have it. Make a little knot. Travel just a smidge. Clip, clip. And there we have, her shawl is complete, and I'm really pleased with it. I really like, I wish you could see the little bit of bump right there, and there's a tiny bit of a bump right here, and it really just gives it some very nice movement. All right, on to the neck. I'm going to check and make sure I'm putting it, oh, see, I almost put it in backwards. Neck goes like this. Part of me feels like I should have overlapped, I should have put the neck down and overlapped the shawl onto the neck, but it looks okay in my previously stitched one, previously partially stitched one. So I think we'll be just fine. Oops. But it would have looked good that way too. But perhaps I don't want to overlap too much, because I think that creates too much of a bumpy, I don't know. I feel like it looks a little bit unprofessional. Not that this is professional, but it looks a little bit, I don't even know. I can't think of the word, but it just doesn't look as pleasing to me when I overlap a whole bunch on a project. See if I can keep this one down to the bottom. My knots end up being halfway up my length of thread, and then it's wasteful. Okay. Where to start? I'm not even going to pin this one, I don't think. This is where you might glue, because then you would, it's kind of a small piece for a pin, so you could glue it. Let's give it a whirl. Got my handy glue based it, and all you simply do is put a couple of dots cover back on. That back in your handy container. Put it in place, hold it for a minute. Gosh, wool just likes to pick up on every little thread. I also have quite a bit of trouble keeping Larry, our cat, off my wool projects. I catch him laying on them all the time. What is that? Okay, see, as you can see, it doesn't really hold that firmly, just enough where you can get your stitching started. I'm having a little bit of eye issue trying seeing this for some reason. There's just something about this black thread with this terracotta color that I absolutely love. I just think it's so pretty. Wow, my eyes are foggy today. I cannot see where my... I'm having trouble seeing the black stitching on the green. Oh, Phyllis, you're very welcome. It is a very handy glue. I'm not sure if you saw in the supply list, but you can get it through Robin Van Allen. Oh my gosh, I have some sort of mental block when it comes to Robin's business name. I forget it every time. Walnut Valley Woolens. Sorry about that, Robin. If you're listening, you can get it through Walnut Valley Woolens. Well, look at those uneven stitches. Oh, goodness. I try not to do that very often. Hopefully things will even up a smidge. You will have more even stitching if you go straight down with your needle and come out, but sometimes it's kind of hard to do, especially with a small piece. And I tend to like my stitches to be short, so that poses another problem for me. Now go gently when you're doing her neck, or with any small bit like this. Because the more you fiddle around with a thin piece of wool, the more likelihood of shredding, and you don't want that. Let me see if I can get it down a little bit closer for you guys. Sorry, I know you may think I'm taking forever to get these stitches in, but if you're not careful with these small pieces, when you're done, you're going to have a shredded mess, and you don't want that. At least I don't. Okay, we're going to round this corner, or go around this circle. It's not a corner, really. Sort of treat it like a corner with your carefulness. As you can see, on a circle, you won't want to come into the same stitch like I do with a sharp pointed corner. You want to pay attention to your direction, because each direction your needle faces is the way your stitch is going to lie down. Lay down, lie down. So whatever way your needle goes in and comes out is how your stitch is going to be shaped. So it's very important. If you want to keep your curve for your circle, you've got to lay it down nicely so that you lay your stitches down nicely and go in the direction of your circle. So they have to be individual stitches on your circle rather than sometimes going in an area of a previous stitch when you do a pointed area. Again, I hope that makes sense to everyone. One moment, I'm just gonna untwist my thread. Sorry, I tend to start to say something and then get to thinking about my stitches and I forget to finish my sentence. I apologize for that. I'll probably get all sorts of thumbs down and nasty comments on YouTube because of it. All right, I have to be a little bit careful. I seem like I'm making these stitches a little bit too long. Oops, I bumped my camera stand. Sorry about that. Here we're going to have a pointy corner here, so let's see if we can get this. So I'm going to go in sort of right where this stitch is. Let me pull it up so you guys can see. I'll go in right where I went in previously, but I will point my needle, well, it's not really where I went in previously, but right next to it. Go straight down to where the shawl is, but not into the shawl color, not into the army green wool. Right down to where it is. Pull back, pull down, and there it secures that corner in place. That sharp tip, I should say, not really a corner. Now, I'll go right here, but I'm going to angle my needle this way a little bit because if I went like this, it would pull up on that tip too much. So I'm going to angle my needle right here, face it this way. Straight up and then down. Then I can come back and head in this direction and go down into where I started. And the neck is complete, and I think it looks rather nice. I don't know what that little errant bit of frayness is, but internet issues. I hope I didn't lose you guys. I just got a pop-up on my screen that says you are no longer connected to the internet. If you guys are still there, would you let me know so I know if I should continue or if I've lost the internet? I'm going to continue for a few minutes. Hopefully you guys are still there. All right, so I'm back on the back. I'll make a little knot. Travel a smidge. Oh, you're still there, Phyllis? Wonderful. Okay, did it disconnect at all, or Am I just having a bit of spookiness happen in my house? Okay, so there we have her neck. I'm going to trim off that tiny bit of fraying. And you can, of course, go ahead and do this when you're done. I just cut my stitch right there by accident when I was trying to trim that fraying. So I am going to fix that because we don't want that to happen. I guess this is a fix an error moment. I am going to come in next to it. No, I'm going to come in 2 down. This is going to make a little bit of thickness, but I don't want to lose my stitching. So you come up, basically what this is going to do is just secure a stitch. So I'm right here, whoops, shaking the stand, and I'm going to go like I am just beginning the wool, the blanket stitch in this area. So I came up right here, and I just simply took a stitch on that bit of thread to anchor this down. And then I came up here, and now I'm going to take a blanket stitch right here. And another blanket stitch right here. And then, oops, hopefully you can still see. Another stitch right here. Pull in the right direction. Get rid of these extra stitches that I clipped by accident. And I'm quite annoyed with myself over because I had such a perfect little shawl going there. It'll make for a little bit of a thicker bit of thread, of course, but at least you won't have your whole piece come apart. And there. I think I'll just go down in right here. And our shoulder is fixed. And that is a good lesson to have shown you. Be careful cutting any frayed areas because you could run into a problem. Oh, Judy, it's warm and muggy in Maine as well. We're having such bizarre weather, aren't we? It is beautiful out right now, though. It's certainly a time you can enjoy autumn and all these are beautiful colors, but it's just very unusual weather for us. And being a snow lover, I'm quite anxious for that to come about. Travel a smidge. And there we go. There in Virginia, Phyllis, it's unusually warm in Virginia as well. I guess it's everywhere. It's crazy. There, that corner is not as fantastic as it was to begin with because of my little stitch issue and clipping it by accident. But now at least you know how to fix something like that. And really, it's not that noticeable. Oh, thank you, Phyllis. Okay, so now let's move on to her head because time is going to get away from us and I don't want it to take 300 videos for me to get this gal finished because you'll get sick of me by then. I'm just checking. Phyllis, we have predictions that today is the last day of warmth and we're supposed to have strong thunderstorms. And tomorrow it's not supposed to get out of the 50s and it's supposed to be back to our typical chilly autumn weather. So we will see. All right, so I'm just going to compare, make sure I have my pumpkin laying in the right direction, because you look and you think this is correct when you actually realize it needs to be flipped over. And then I like her at a bit of an angle. You could do her straight on, but I think she looks best like this. And you can, of course, use some glue for this, but I'm just going to simply put a little pin in her in this very center. Keep her in place. Once I get her in the right area, got to make sure that you butt them up against each other, because of course you want her head touching her neck. She's not a floating headed pumpkin. She could be, I suppose, but oh, good, Judy. Okay, great. Did you guys have a glitch at all on your end? When I said that it told me I was disconnected from the internet, did the video freeze or stop or anything? All right, now I don't want to waste this short bit of thread. I'm going to. I just, it'll take me longer if I fiddle around with short threads. No, you didn't? Oh, well, that's great. I wonder what that was all about. Well, at least it didn't interrupt the video. All right, let me get this threaded. Oh, Phyllis, it has been freezing off and on through this whole live video? Oh, my word, I am so sorry. I envisioned issues because when it's windy here, for whatever reason, and I know this might sound insane, but when it's windy here in Vermont, we have no cell service and our internet acts up. I apologize for that. Oh, goodness, I hope I am going to be able to upload this to YouTube and those issues not show up. I may have to refilm this myself, not redo a live, but now that stitch is a little bit far away. Hopefully I can bring it in. Oh, the wind's going to get Oliver James all stirred up. He's going to start barking. It's all right, bub. It's just the wind. That's kind of his half-hearted, I might want to bark at something, but I'm not quite sure I want to make the effort. Also, when it's windy like this, and for those of you that don't know, Oliver James is our sweet 9-year-old yellow lab. When it's windy like this, he tends to pick up on a lot more smells. Oh, just flop down. Pick up on a lot more smells because they, of course, are traveling on the wind. So it tends to get him a little bit stirred up. I love it when the wind howls like that. I don't know if you guys could just hear it or not, but it was just howling like, woo, like something you might hear in a haunted house. I love it. Our grandson, not so much. He does not like it when the wind makes noise like that. trying to keep these stitches on the shorter side because I want to put some detail stitches on her head to create the look of shadowing that I have in this on the template. So I want to keep these outer stitches on the short side so they won't interfere with those stem stitches that I'm going to, hold on one moment, let me move some things. So they won't interfere with the stem stitching that I want to add in. Shadows, creases, you know, the natural, to create the natural shape of a pumpkin. I feel like she'll look rather flat without those. And remember, when you're stitching something like this kind of a wonky shaped circle, to keep all of the little curves, bumps in your piece, you've got to point your needle in the direction that the edges are going. So you just, oh God, that's hard to explain, but you just want to point your needle in toward each bump and curve. Oops, that one's getting a little bit too deep. Oop, I have got a little knot. Sometimes you can just grab each end and pull it like that and it gets them out. Sometimes you can't. It's always a good day when you're able to catch your knots and get them apart without having to rethread. Okay, I'm going to take that little pin out. Oops, sorry. My gosh, I wonder how many times I say, oops, sorry in my videos. Sometimes I get stitching along and forget that I'm on the video, and I get quiet, and then I go to take a stitch and whack the camera. I'd like to get a little bit of bubbliness in this as well. A little bit of air under there. Not really air, because of course air wouldn't stay there and cause it to be bubbled up. But if you lift up on it a little bit as you're stitching, you'll get a little bit of poof in the underneath the wool, a little bit of space between the wool and the element that you're stitching and the background wool, and that'll allow for a little bit of movement in the particular piece, in that particular area. And I had a thought that if I allowed for that to be a little bit bumpy when I did the feather stitch, it might create a nice look. So I'm going to allow that to be just a smidge lifted, not too much, because then it might make a wrinkled mess, but just a little bit. Try to be a little bit quick here, because once we get our head done, we are going to need to call it quits for the day, because if I make it too long, I will never get this video uploaded. Just trying not to stitch too quickly, because then I'll lose my outer edges by not paying attention to the direction of my needle. Goodness, after today's wind, I don't think we'll have a leaf left on the trees. Which is, you know, always this time of year, you want to make sure that the leaves, it's always best to have the leaves off the trees before we have our first good snowstorm, because if we have a heavy snowstorm when there's still leaves on the trees, then sometimes it'll break the trees. Ooh, I'm getting close to the edge here, or the end of my thread, I should say. This is going to overlap her neck just a little bit. And I could lie to you and tell you that I meant for that to happen, but I didn't. I must have taken my pin out too soon, which caused my head to move a little bit. So now the neck, all that lovely stitching I did, all that lovely stitching I was so careful to be conscious of at the top of her neck is actually going to end up being covered up because my head moved down a little bit. So it's going to overlap. But you know, for a neck, it's probably best. I could probably get it, and that would give me some nice bumps in here if I pushed it up. However, because I'm going to do some stem stitch shadowing in here, I don't want it this bumpy. And I don't know if you can see, but that's a good bump we have right there. So I'm just gonna lift it a smidge and then just let it overlap a little bit. Well, my God, isn't today just full of all sorts of mistakes? I guess we can take it as a learning opportunity, and perhaps it will help you deal with your own mistakes as they come about. Not give up on something just because you have a mistake, and help you figure out how to correct that mistake. Here I am stitching down into the other piece of wool, which of course will happen when you overlap. I'm just trying to do it as evenly as I can. Without losing this short bit of thread that I have left here. Because I really would rather not have to rethread my needle with just 2 or 3 stitches left. Oh, yay. We might have accomplished it. Oh, you son of a gun. Let's see here. Okay, just come on, cooperate, thread. And there we have it. Oh, how'd this happen? Oh my heavens. Oh Lord, it's been one of those days, people. Oh my gosh, the poor guy is stitched down. How did I manage that? Oh my word. What do we have going on today? Poor guy. How on earth did that happen? All right. And there we go. Her head is stitched down. And we are all set. Let me lift up so you can get a good look at her. I think she's looking quite lovely. She'll look really nice when we get some shadowing done with some seams. At least I hope she will. Let's hope this little guy wasn't damaged in the process of my stitching the head. Apparently he's anxious to get in on the activity. Okay, everybody. I'm going to end this video here. And we will meet again on Monday and continue stitching. I'm sorry if it seems like these videos are taking forever, but it was important to me, or it is important to me, for this first stitch series project to do everything from start to finish and show you every little thing being stitched. So hopefully you don't mind and you're enjoying the stitching process, and we'll finish it eventually. Okay, so next time we'll concentrate on the stem. We'll get the stem done and her arms and the turkey. Hopefully we can move along at a little bit quicker pace and get this gal put together. All right, have the very best day and enjoy your unseasonably warm weather if you're having it, and we will see you Monday at 11. Goodbye, everyone.